Hi guys, welcome back to Lisa's Love and Light. How are you guys on this Tuesday afternoon? Trying to get here a little bit earlier. Um, Sometimes I can do this and other times I can't, but thank you for being here. Thank you for the messages and thank you for showing up. I really appreciate you guys. Um, what I would like to do is to invite you guys to comment on how these videos are helping you, if they're helping you, what you resonate with, and what is beneficial within your own circumstances. So you don't have to talk about what those circumstances are, but just let me know how these videos are helping you. I would appreciate the feedback. Also, guys, continue to take care of yourself. Some days are good for me, and other days it's just like it feels like carrying a ton of bricks. But I keep moving and moving forward, no matter what it looks like. So, guys, continue to move forward, even if you take a half a step for that particular day and you don't do anything else. You've done something. And what I do is that I ask God to help me. I take these steps and I ask God the steps I can't take to do the rest. And He has been doing that. It's a lot of outside interference that's trying to, it's like get their foot in the door. But I've closed the door to all of these things, and when it feels overwhelming to me, I stay in prayer, asking God to help me, because some days it's like, because there's a lot of people who are getting these messages and they are benefiting from this, and I've had some comments, some personal ones to my email where people have said thank you and to keep going, with these messages. And then I haven't had really any other kind of comments except for one that I had to delete. But besides that, it's just haters. And many of the haters that I'm referring to are people that I've cut off, block, and delete. And it was necessary. Sometimes it's necessary even though you don't want to do it. I mean, I'm talking from personal experience about my own situation. It was necessary because it was a distraction on my healing journey. I don't play about my healing. I don't play about my vows to God. I don't play about my persevering through all this BS because if it affected my health tremendously. I wanted to maybe the next time show you some pictures of just how huge I was, the stress I was undergoing, and where I am today. Because guys, I think I talked about being overweight. And when you're only 5'3", I mean, overweight, people having like severe overweight problems cause other health issues. But for me, a lot of it had to do with the stress of having toxic individuals in my life. Because every other day there was some drama, some negativity, some just, and sometimes people just starting problems because they didn't like the peace. And what I do now, after learning how to deal with these things, because I didn't before, I would just cry about it, is I would confront it like you confront the metaphor I use, elephant in the room. I confront the situation. And if it continues, then I just cut off, block, and delete because it's not worth my time or effort anymore. And I give no attention to it. Before I would do just the boundaries. And then when people decide that they were going to ignore the boundaries, disrespect it and etc., then I cut off, block, and delete. Don't allow anyone to force you off your healing journey, because as I say all the time, it should be a priority, not because you are in love with yourself or anything like that. And it's not really being selfish, guys. Don't let people tell you that, because it's not true. Because if you don't take care of your physical and mental health, you can't take care of yourself or anything else around you. And also, it can create several health issues like I had, and I talk about it. I had to just back and forth to the hospital with high blood pressure, overweight issues that almost led to like a borderline diabetes situation. It didn't get there, but it was on its way, so to speak. And I worked hard. Losing the weight isn't easy, but I changed the way I eat. I still eat some of the things I like, but within moderation. And a lot of the overeating habits came from the stress of having particular individuals in my life that shouldn't be there. And one of the things that made me hold on to, guys, is just because we share DNA. You're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do it that way, you're supposed to help no matter what because we share DNA. No, that's not true. You can't help somebody who don't want to help themselves. You can try to do that, but if that individual don't want to help themselves, then you can't help them. It's like the saying, you can bring the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. And if that person's not motivated, everything else they're doing, some people just like to live off of other people's. They want other people's money, as they say, other people's time and energy. They don't want to build like from the ground up a solid foundation. The only thing they know how to do is to cipher and take from other folks. And I'm not allowing that anymore. So when people continue with that, I just cut them off, block and delete. And I have no more time. I don't give my time or energy to things that are not for my highest good. Because what happens, it creates stress. Ongoing stress can lead to health issues. And I'm talking from experience. And I had to work hard to heal all those things because I felt really broken inside. And in order, for me to move forward, I had to clean up some things. And that meant looking at the elephant in the room. It's just like going to a doctor and finding out you have some kind of problem. And a doctor gets to the root cause to resolve that problem. And that's what I did. Looked at the root cause and then decided, okay, in some cases set some real strong boundaries, and then other cases just cut off, block, and delete. Yesterday on here I was talking about diffusing the fire, putting it out. When somebody wants to, and these are a lot of narcissistic individuals who are full of themselves, that I've dealt with. And when someone wants to argue because they just want to put you in a bad mood, because like I said, I'm a person who thinks very optimistically. I'm very positive, and some days I'm really vibing higher than other days. I stay in prayer, meditation, and I uplift myself with music and positive videos to keep myself going. And when someone wants to come in and throw a monkey wrench in that, what they were doing is just starting unnecessary arguments for no reason. And then before I could realize what was really going on, what I was doing is falling for that and engaging in that. Now here's what happens when you engage in that. They are taking your good energy and they are dimming your light, because they are taking their tons of bricks, which is a metaphor I use for their burdens, and they're throwing them, at your front door in your lap. And then after they dump all of this on you, then they go about their merry way. Oh, they feel great, and then you're sitting here feeling like crap. I don't allow that anymore. And the way I diffuse it is when they come, with the attitude and blah, blah to start an argument, I already know what it is. I stare at them, have a good day, and I'm on my way. Because that's how you diffuse it. Because they can't argue by themselves if you don't engage in it. They need participants. Don't be a participant with somebody's toxicity, because it will ruin your day. It will make you feel less than, zero, etc. I don't engage in that anymore. And like I said, for me, it works because they can't argue by themselves. And by the time they get all fired up, I'm already gone. I'm already out the door. Because I have no tolerance. I have zero tolerance. I work very hard on myself. It's not a game. It's not a joke. And regressing back into something that I already healed from, it's not an option for me. So if I have to close doors, even though it may hurt, because none of this stuff is easy, guys, and yeah, sometimes it really hurts, but what's more important, you know, just allowing someone to stay in your presence, even though they are toxic as hell and they're bringing all their toxicity to your table while you're trying to clean up your toxicity and heal, then it will stifle or stagnate your healing. And I refuse to do that at this point. I've done too much work, you know, and so I just let these folks go. And some people have a hard time going, and that's why they get blocked, cut off, and deleted, because they keep trying and trying and trying, and I've already healed those things. It's not a game, it's not a joke, and I'm not regressing to, like the metaphor I use, crabs in a barrel. One crab makes it up to the top. Oh wow, I'm almost out, and then, you know, here these 10 crabs at the bottom dragging him or her right back down to the bottom. Before it can get to that point, I cut off, block, and delete, because I don't allow that energy in my space, time, or life. You know, because some people love misery and it's contagious, you know, and they want to infect you with it. And so what I do is just diffuse it and keep moving. You know, and I'm not talking about disagreements, like you have a disagreement with somebody about something. I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm talking about people who are just miserable with their lives, everything within it, and they see you at peace over here, at peace, and they want to disturb your peace with all types of toxicity. And a way to shut that down is sometimes just be silent, walk away. They can't engage without participants. So that's for somebody, I think, who might be listening, who might be going through something like that. That's the way I shut it down. That's the way I shut these things down. I don't engage in that stuff anymore. Before, I couldn't see it before healing, but as I do the work to heal, talk to God, you know, I start to see things from a different perspective instead of from a broken mindset, as I was doing most of my life. And you know, now I see things for what they are, and I chose to be a non-participant in those events. So with that being said, guys, keep in mind, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a social worker or a counselor. I'm just somebody who went through a lot of hell, trials, and tribulations, and I talk about ways to become an overcomer instead of succumbing to it. And keep in mind that we're here to uplift, not to tear down. There's too much of that in this world. So we're here to uplift and motivate one another. With that being said, let's get into this topic of discussion, and it's called self-love, self-care. Now, I talk about this a lot, and it's important to me because when you self-care, you realize you take your, first of all, you take your self-esteem from 0 to feeling good about yourself, knowing your self-worth, knowing what's for your highest good. You know, whereas before, and I'm using myself always as an example, is just settling for things that were not for my highest good, just because somebody's interested, just because I share DNA with somebody and they are toxic as hell, but you know, okay, we can excuse that because we share DNA or because it's a significant other or whatever it is. I stopped making excuses for the BS. And what I do now is see behind the mask that some of these folks are wearing, the mask of deception, and I see it for what it is and not for what they want me to see. And then I cut off, block, and delete and leave it where it is. I refuse to be a participant in toxicity. I will always be a non-participant in it, you know, because toxicity begets toxicity, like misery, and I'm past that now. So self-care is part of the healing, and I didn't know how to do any of these things until I started. The first place was therapy with a therapist. Probably for the first month and a half, you know, we show up on Zoom and just stare at each other. I look at the time, and when the time is, okay, time is up now, and I go, and he was patient with that, you know. And then when I did start to talk, because, you know, I don't trust people that easily, we started to talk, and I started to talk a lot. And he started to say, when you're dealing with A, B, C, and D, set boundaries. But here's the interesting part that really helped me, is that he talked about self, besides boundaries, the pro and con list. He talked about doing that it would be beneficial to me because I can see what these folks are bringing to my table and what I'm bringing to the table. And that's when I started to see things in a different perspective, and that I was an overgiver, and that I was subservient to needs of others. And most of these needs that I was subservient to had nothing to do with me. So what I was doing, and what that system allowed me to see, the pro and the con list, is that I am involving myself in other people's burdens and situations that had nothing to do with me, and trying to resolve their problems when it's their own burden to carry. And sometimes, like I always say on this channel, that people, circumstances, situations come into our life for a reason, a season, a lifetime, or a lesson. And in many cases, these are unlearned lessons that will come back. The cycles will always reappear. Different characters, different circumstances, but the same cycle until we learn those lessons. And once we learn the lesson, when it comes as a test the next time around, we can see it for what it is. I see behind that mask of deception now. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. And then you do a different act. You do something differently. You don't engage in it. Something I didn't know to do before. And then when I stop engaging in these things, these toxic things, and seeing it for what it is, the door closed. I padlocked it, I kept going. And as I did the work, and the more I did, the more I learned, the more I self-care, the more I self-love, I started to change my mindset that was broken all these years, thinking that I'm supposed to let people do certain things to me because I'm a woman, and you're supposed to let A, B, C, and D happen. Oh, well, I had somebody years ago who was an acquaintance that told me, and I knew somebody who I was dating at that time was, I had suspicions about them seeing somebody else. And she had the audacity to tell me to close my eyes to it. I laugh at it today, close my eyes to it, because that's what she was doing. And then I started, to think about, no, that's not okay, So when people, and I'm saying all of this to say that when people have a broken mindset and they come from a broken background, this is what is being taught, from person to person to person. So where is the self-love and self-care? How is any of these things for your highest good? None of these things is for your highest good. But, some people feel like, well, this is what my grandmother did. This is what my mother or father did and put up with. And then it gets instilled in us, and we think we're doing the right thing. But in reality, we are staying in situations that are not for our highest good because we don't feel good enough for anything else, because of the broken mindset, the broken way of living, the broken behavior pattern. Once we realize what these things are and why we keep repeating cycles, then, only then, we can change it for the better. And that's what I've learned so far on this healing journey. Just staying in situations just to have somebody, just allowing family to take advantage and say and do whatever, however, just because we share DNA. Staying in places and circumstances and situations that make us miserable as hell just because. And I refuse to do those things anymore. I don't have to act out of character. I don't have to get bent out of shape. I just have to say, no, this is not for my highest good. I'm cutting off, blocking, and deleting, and I'm going towards my new beginnings, new things, new situations, building a solid foundation instead of a foundation that's built on something that's going to fall down to the ground. Fake love, fake friends, fake relationships, Those things are not built on solid ground. And at some point, they will fall apart because of it. Seeing behind a mask of deception that people are wearing. Some people can be charming to lure you into something of a trap or something that is not for your highest good. To see the signs of that, where I wasn't looking at those things before, seeing those things now so that I can detour. Because it's so much better to avoid these traps than to fall into them. Because as you fall into it, and it's like it has a chokehold on you. And now you're stuck and stagnated. Whereas if you avoided it and detoured over here, then you save yourself a lot of grief, pain, time, and etc. So it's important, as you build yourself up and you start to look at things from a different perspective, listen to your intuition. Men and women. Men, you have that too. Because when you get that feeling, gut feeling, that's shaking you to your very core, not to do something, listen to that. Because that very thing might be saving your life. And I've experienced that time and time again. I always listen to my intuition. If something doesn't feel right and it's shaking me to my very core, I'm going to listen to that and I'm going to detour so that I don't fall into the traps that these haters might have for me. And when I'm not perfect, but what I do is pray to God and I stay in prayer with him, asking him what I don't see, because God sees it all, no matter what people think. God is the source. He sees it all. If I don't see it and it's not for my highest good, just block it. Remove it, block it. Doesn't matter. I may feel some kind of way during that time frame, but I'll get over it, because then I would start to understand that this was blocked because it's not for my highest good. It's important, And what I've learned also is that I don't have to stay broken and in broken situations, as I used to just stay and be miserable. Nobody has to be miserable. Excuse me, guys. Nobody has to be miserable and stay in situations that do not bring any enhancement to your life. This is what I've learned also so far as I've been healing, growing, and evolving. And I learned to set strong boundaries, because some people don't respect boundaries, especially when they're used to the old version of who I was, because I would just let anybody do anything. I did a video, I don't know, a few weeks ago about an example of setting boundaries. When someone was like a friend, more of an acquaintance, would just show up at my house, especially on a Saturday morning, because just because she wasn't busy, and call me or text me and tell me she's outside. Okay, what are you doing here? I grew up in a house where you don't do that. You wait until you get invited over or you make plans or etc. You just don't show up, and I had to shut that down. And it was hard to do because this person was overstepping boundaries. So what I had to end up doing is reiterate those boundaries. And when it was like, girl, please, kind of attitude, there was no more conversation. I just cut off, block, and delete. That's it. And, you show up again, then you're going to be talking to the police, and then, it's not going to be good. And I don't have to get out of character or blah, blah, etc. I just do what I need to do in the background. That's it. And that's how I do things now, because nothing will interfere with my peace, my healing, and my growth. And people who really love you and really respect you and they're going to want to see you grow, heal, and evolve. And anybody else is hating on you because you're healing, because you self-care and self-loving on yourself. That's insane to me. There's something wrong with somebody like that. To me, it's like, how can you hate on somebody because they're taking care of themselves? They are at peace. They're healing, growing, and evolving. I've had some things where people look down on that, and I just cut off, block, and delete. That's not a discussion. We all should be doing that. And some people, what I realized from that, and particular individuals, is that they love the drama and the toxicity. They love all types of situations, that's malicious and not for their highest good. Well, we all have a choice in a matter. Things that are not for my highest good, I'm going to leave it where it is. And I'm going to go over here and heal and stay in prayer and meditation and take care of me. And if anyone feels some kind of way about you guys doing that, set strong boundaries. You know? Set strong boundaries. Because we are supposed to take care of ourselves. The more you self-care, the more you self-love, the more you build up your self-esteem, the more you can fix the broken mindset. Because sometimes how we grew up affect us, and certain things may not be, we can see things from a different perspective than how it was when we grew up, and this is what I'm learning. And for example, one of the things that I'm learning is that what stays in this house, what happens in this house stays in this house. Nobody heals from that. What that means is that you're carrying a trauma, a childhood trauma, or whatever it may be, that have affected your mental and your physical. And if you do not heal that, and one of the ways to heal it is to address it and let yourself feel the pain. Therapy, an outlet to speak about these things. If you're not doing any of these things and you're just pretending the elephant is not in the room, it's not growing or getting bigger, then it stays stuck and stagnated. So now you're carrying tons of bricks, luggage, and baggage with you everywhere you go. And whether you're trying to connect with new connections, friends, relationship, etc., it's hard when you're carrying tons of bricks, because it feels like carrying those tons of bricks up a hill where it gets too heavy. But when you address it, and yes, you're going to feel the pain and everything that comes with it, then you can get to the root cause of the pain. Once you get to the root cause of it and address it, then you can release it. And now it doesn't feel so heavy anymore, guys. It doesn't feel heavy anymore. And then you can enjoy your life to the fullest. So boundaries are so important so that you can look at these things, and stay in a healing. Because healing is not an overnight thing. And as you get better, you feel better and you do better. Persevere through the pain. No pain, no gain, as they say. But one of the things I do is just stay in prayer, ask God to help me, especially on those days where I feel the grief. Because sometimes the grief from losses that I talked about yesterday sometimes it's a trigger grief that comes out of nowhere, a song, something that I see in a store or whatever it might be. And it triggers that moment, and I go into prayer asking God to help me. It's important also to have people around you who really support what you're doing, because those individuals are going to uplift you. They're going to be there when you don't feel well, and you have those off days, to encourage you, to motivate you so that you can keep moving forward and so that you don't give up on yourself. Those are the folks that you need to have in your surroundings, and then set boundaries with the others. And that's what I've been doing, setting boundaries and just mostly cut off, block, and delete, and closing doors that no longer serve the person that I am today, and closing, padlocking those doors over here and going over here and opening up new doors with new beginnings. New people, new situations where people really care about me and want to see me grow, heal, and evolve, and will motivate me and encourage me. That doesn't cost anything, people. But with toxic individuals, they are like crabs in a barrel. They don't want to see you grow, heal, and evolve. And they are the ones who will try to drag you back down to the bottom where they are, with the lies, malicious lies, the gossip, or the drama, or the toxicity that you're healing yourself from. And I say no thank you, and then I cut off, block, and delete, and keep moving forward. Because as I do that, God is in the background taking steps as well on my behalf so that I can stay on this journey to heal, grow, and evolve, instead of and so that I can also stay in inner peace instead of broken down into pieces. That's the message today, guys. One day at a time, one step at a time. Make sure on a daily basis that you're taking out time, an hour, 2 hours a day, to self-care. As you do that, you will start to feel better and see things from a different perspective, from a positive one. Well, guys, this is Lisa, shedding love and light. Thank you all for being here today. Please share this video, subscribe to the channel, because every day is going to be a new message, and take what resonates with you, and perhaps what I'm saying here will be beneficial to whatever you're going through. Thank you again, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you sometime tomorrow. Bye for now, guys.